Well, good evening and welcome back to Northern Maine. We are on the workbench in the workshop and we are degreasing and inspecting the differential for the old Snapper 30083. Amazingly, there wasn't a whole lot to see here. I've degreased the chain case here, the differential case. All these old gears here look pretty good. The chain looks good. I changed the stub axle on this differential assembly and the axle. This one here is the one that come off in it. That's the one that was egg shaped really bad. So the only other calamity that I found with this was I had one of these pinion gears here has got some marks on the teeth, so it worked out alright. I actually, when I took that stub shaft off of that old 3081 axle, I used one of the pinion gears out of that one. The pinion gears were still good. So now that I got this cleaned up, we can see that this bowl gear is actually in pretty darn good shape. Now, as many of you probably are aware, a lot of times when the teeth wear on these a little bit, they'll start smushing metal out along the edges of the teeth. There was some of that going on with this bowl gear. Both sides of it. Now, it doesn't look bad. Everything looks pretty good. This is kind of, I'll show you on this old gear here, kind of what was going on. You can probably see it. But they're just sharp edges that protrude along the edges of these teeth, and so what I did when I had this gear off of this axle, I just started this bench grinder up here and I just lightly run the edge of that gear around against that side of that grinding wheel, and that cleaned it right up. If you can see here that it all looks really good now. So I did get the differential all back together, and that all works. That works the way it should work now. It's nice and smooth and nice and tight. The stub shaft fit really good and tight on the end of the axle here. The only I don't remember if, I think I showed it in the video when I was first disassembling the differential case, and I had to hold back into this. This is the hex shaft that come out of the chain case. It comes out of the differential and into the chain case. If you remember, I showed you that this thing had quite a lot of back and forth slop in it. So I isolated that issue. That is the washer that was on there. Now this unit, I watched a video on a slightly newer machine, and it actually had this type of washer on both ends of the newer one. I don't believe that this washer was one of those, because I looked it up in the parts manual and it actually just shows this fiber shim right here. You can actually see where the end of this hex shaft was starting to wear into that, because this was actually stuck on the end of that hex shaft because it had worn through it. That's a pretty simple thing. What I'm going to do is I found another thrust washer right here. It's a nice thick one. That'll go on there before the axle goes through. And then I'm gonna put that piece there. That's marked up a little bit, but that's not gonna bother anything too much. And I'll just put that against the bushing in the fender. And that should be plenty to tighten that up. Now, even as excessive as the play was in that hex shaft, I've talked about it, and Jim's Fix-It Shop has talked about it too. But what happens if that's allowed to move too far? You'll start to see the chain rubs on the case, and eventually it'll actually wear a hole right out through the case. Well, you know, obviously you can see here, there ain't a mark on there where the chain never touched that case, so that's excellent. So that means that even as sloppy as that was, it wasn't worn enough to actually get into the chain case. So any amount that I can tighten that up is going to be even better. So that's basically, there's the fender cover. I tested this bushing here just to see how much slop was in this, and you know, it's got a little bit, you know, it wiggles a little. Let me bring I have the fender off in my 3081 over here, with it's the same identical part. And there's some of that dried up grease that was in that. You can see what I was talking about. Look at this one. That one is completely totaled. And I mean completely totaled. So I would say that other bushing up there in this fender is probably fine. I'm going to leave it right in there. This one was actually still working alright. It was driving alright, just the friggin' chain fell off in it eventually. But you know, maybe I'll buy a new bushing, but I don't think there's any point in it, because both of these stub shafts have some minor wear on them. And that's okay. I don't plan on daily driving this lawnmower for the next 10 years. You know, it's going to be an occasional use machine. It's probably going to be more of a show machine than anything. And none of this stuff's going to show. So, but I think that probably, you know, in my own opinion, you can use your own judgment, but I think this is going to work just fine for what I'm going to be doing with this machine. I don't plan on running this a lot, so this will be good, I think. But that's just kind of what some of the many obstacles you run into on these things. Jumpings. You run these things for 40, 50 years and they do wear out eventually. Luckily this one only saw about 15 years of service, so. Well, I just thought I'd bring that. I worked on this just a little bit. I cleaned it up just a little. This is yoke. I got to take it and do a little bit of repair work on it, but I think it's enough for tonight. I'm going to call her a day and I'm going in and get ready for bed. Y'all have a good evening. Bye bye.